Hi, Jackie. How are you?
Good, good. How are you going, Ash?
I'm good. It's very hot in Perth. We have at today, I think 40 degrees, but like this week, it's like
Wow.
39 to 40 all week.
Nice. Is it actually sunny or
Yes. Blue
oh
skies. Yeah, I've got children whinging about going to school in 40-degree heat. I've got tenants complaining about aircons not working.
yeah, all the
And
aircon leaks.
I know. And then, hopefully the trades are okay, but I remember a few years ago with aircon contractors, they had a whole heap of people on leave like during December, January. And I was like, what sort of business are you running, having like being an aircon company and letting your staff have leave? Like
Mm.
that should just be like not negotiable.
You can go away from May till July. That's it. Summer, you need to be available. Yeah, we're having a few. Funny enough, I was actually doing a routine inspection yesterday, and the tenant was saying that the aircon was leaking again because we just had a leak repaired on it. But it was 9 in the morning, and she had both the aircons running, and it wasn't even hot. And I was like, I feel like it potentially could be overuse as well. So you got to be careful with that.
I mean, I remember when I was a kid and we didn't have aircon, and I used to remember I had a cold shower, I got a flannel, and I put the flannel on me, and then I had a fan, and that was just normal. But yeah, these days, gotta have aircon in every room.
Hey, we didn't even have aircon in our house that we live in now. We've been here 6 years. I would not pay for aircon up until we got it in February this year. And then obviously we use it all the time now that we have it. So we
What
went a few years without it.
Yeah, what do you think with regards to aircon and expectations in a rental property? With like, should it be just given at should aircon just be a given that every property has it, or is it still considered a luxury? What do you reckon?
I think luxury, I do think it's almost mandatory to have like ceiling fan and light combos in the bedrooms because of, airflow and that kind of thing. But I still think it's a luxury. So I think if tenants request it and it's not currently in the property, because it's also a big expenditure to put out, it's like 2 grand, 2.5 grand to get an aircon installed. So I think if the tenants want it and they're requesting it, I think there's grounds for, a slight rent increase to compensate for it's a big outlay. So that's my thoughts. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that while there are portable aircon options that tenants can also use, I am sort of the same thought that it is a luxury. I think that, every state probably has these really hot spells, and where it's a week of hot weather, sure, it can be quite hard. But quite often these hot days, we only have like one or two in a row, and then we have some respite from it. But at the end of the day, you still can go and buy a portable aircon and put it in your room. You can move it around wherever you're working, etc., in the house. And you can sort of pick them up for $300 or $400. So I sort of feel like that's an option. I know that we, like in our office, we actually have purchased a portable aircon for emergencies. So, for example, if we have
Oh,
a tenant that's got like a new baby or an elderly person, their aircon's not working, and the contractors have been arranged, but there's a delay in parts, for example, then we have a portable aircon that will deliver to the house just to help them out temporarily. So
that's nice.
yeah, we sort of did that, when we had people screaming at us, and it
Yeah.
was worth just getting the $400 aircon and using it. But surprisingly, it doesn't actually get used as much as what I thought. I thought it would like be booked out all the time. So it's yeah, it's interesting. It's one of those things. I think for me, going and doing a viewing or a home open for a rental property on a hot day when there's no aircon in the house, that's really going to be difficult to sell the property to a client if they walk in there and it's hot. So as
Yeah.
a landlord or as an investor, if you have a vacant property that doesn't have aircon, be mindful that tenants are going to experience what it's going to be like living in your property on those days, and maybe speak to your property manager about being strategic with your viewing times and things like that, so that it's not in the middle of the day, for example.
Yeah, I was just thinking about your flannel comment. Could you imagine if you said that to a tenant without aircon? Well, just get a flannel and put it on your head and we'll fix it next week.
Yeah, no, I think that I'll end up in a current affair for that comment. I probably put it in writing. That's for
Hey,
sure.
actually, on that thread, before we get into our hotspots, I just want to ask about the expectations of tenants in Perth. So, in Queensland specifically, we've had a whole range of new legislations and minimum housing standards, and a lot of legislation that gave the tenants more rights. Are you finding the expectations of tenants to be a lot higher than they were, 2 or 3 years ago in Perth?
To be honest, no, not really. I think because of the rental crisis, a lot of people are so thankful to be in homes, and I am finding tenants really, really good at the moment in terms of
Mm,
not really expecting a lot, just getting by. Yeah, I mean, we're really lucky. We've got tenants as well that little things like Ash, our flexi hoses burst, am I allowed to fix it and send you the receipt from Bunnings? And I'm like,
mm,
absolutely, that's great.
yeah.
That type of creating those relationships is quite important. And I'm not finding, yeah, I actually, yeah, I think sorry, I gave you a really long answer. The short answer is no, I'm not actually really noticing it. I think going back 20 years to now, absolutely. But
Yeah.
in the last couple of years, I feel like it's been okay. Is it?
Yeah. It's actually changed a lot, and I'm getting the same feedback from a lot of Queensland, specifically property managers I, I'm finding just very unreasonable on time frames of things. Everything needs to be done urgently, and not for all of them. Like I've got some really, really good tenants in the portfolio as well that are, very low maintenance, but you're finding it more common that expectations of things need to be fixed and then they need to be fixed now, and that kind of thing. And I'm getting similar feedback from a lot of property managers in Brisbane. So it's like, is that something with that legislation that's come in?
It could be the result of that for sure. I've just started sending tenants a copy of the work orders. So for me, when I've been arranging things like ovens or air cons or things that are considered quite urgent, I now CC the work order to the tenant. They've got the details of the contractor, and then it puts a bit of pressure on the contractor to also do it in a timely fashion, because our biggest issue is the contractors are taking a bit longer to do things. But I think as long as the client and the tenant can see that we've actioned it, yeah, it sort of has been okay. But I would blame your legislation for that, I think.
Well, it's just another ripple effect of like COVID and the things that they put in place at the time seems right, but they do have a ripple effect of tenants having higher expectations and yeah, tougher crowds to please, I guess. As a whole, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We a funny story today. Well, this was a funny story, but we doing rent increases, and a tenant came back to us, probably being a little bit more, I guess probably expecting that because she's a good tenant that we're going, that the rent increase is going to be, will be taking that into account, if that makes sense. And at the end of the day, like for a tenant, you're expected to be a good tenant. Like that's not doing that's not going over and above. You're expected to pay your rent and look after the property. And so the owner is allowed to get market rate for the property, and they still quite often keep it under market rate, for a tenant that hasn't caused, any headaches and problems, etc. But yeah, probably an expectation from a tenant's point of view is probably for us more around those rent increases, because we've seen them go dramatically up. And yeah, it's just it's interesting sort of mindset, I guess, that the way, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but the way tenants see it is that I'm a good tenant, so surely that accounts for something. But it's like you're a good tenant, but you're meant to be a good tenant, and yeah, that's not that over and above reason for an owner to be too reserved, I guess, with the rent increase.
Yeah, and it's pretty important that they do keep it in line with market value. Like it's very rare at the moment. If you're buying properties at the moment, chances are they're going to be very you'd be lucky to see them neutral, if not slightly negative. In most areas, some areas heavily negative. So you need to get what you can get in terms of rents to help mitigate that, I think.
Well, otherwise, owners are going to be forced to sell the property if it doesn't work out financially, and that's just going to create another great big problem. So we want owners to be financial and reaping benefits of investment properties to continue a long-term investment journey.
Oh, it's literally paramount to the journey. Otherwise, I see it often where people have bought home and land packages maybe like 2 or 3 years ago or 5 years ago, have had minimal growth, and the rents are not getting up there. And yeah, they're in the position where it's like, well, I'm just going to sell this because it's causing me too much pain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
All right, let's go into suburbs. Sorry, we went a little
Yes.
with that, but that's okay. We see, so those that are listening, normally Jackie and I have like that chat prior to pressing record, and today we just press record and had that chat with you all so that you get to listen to
Yeah,
what.
just it is interesting having those conversations. Like I think people on the outside, not in real estate, wouldn't understand the ins and outs of actually what it looks like on a day-to-day basis. So what have you got hotspot wise? What's your
Well,
suburb?
I'm not going to call it a hotspot, but I'm going to talk about a certain suburb, and that's Port Kennedy. And Port Kennedy is in the Rockingham area, south of Perth. It was one of the most popular suburbs about 3 years ago, where people were purchasing for around 379 to 399,000 for a 4x2. I just got asked to look at a property that was on the market for $620,000, and I was like, holy moly, that's a lot of money. But when I researched the area, that's what the prices are doing. In Port Kennedy, they're sitting around that 600 to 640,000. However, there are also properties in that suburb and surrounds for around 470 to 520. So what I just wanted to basically bring to people's attention today is about buying appropriately in some of these suburbs. And if I use Port Kennedy as an example, I would suggest that people look at those surrounding suburbs that are a little bit cheaper, because it's really important to be buying, spending an appropriate amount of money in the suburb. And what that means is asking a property manager, what is the affordability for tenants in that location? Because if tenants generally can only afford, let's say, $550 per week, and you buy a property for 620,000, those numbers aren't going to work, and you're already at the top. So for me, I would probably say that in some, knowing what the affordability is for that suburb, and then setting your budget that you're going to buy something suitably and less risk of overpaying or buying in this market, because I'm definitely finding we have got a lot of impatient investors in Perth right now saying to me, I want to buy before the end of the month, I want to buy before Christmas. And I'm just so worried that they're just going to make a hasty decision because they're so hard to find, and they're just going to buy something and it's not going to work financially. So I draw attention to Port Kennedy that yes, those prices are going up, but look at the cheaper end and be mindful that while that is the market rate from what a tenant can afford to spend in that property, I don't feel like those numbers are going to match. So it's sort of, that's a bit of my suburb, but also my tip, all in one for you, Jackie.
Yeah, and affordability is just such a key factor. It's like one of those main factors that we keep going into and go back to is how does the purchase price and the affordability for the tenant and the market value correlate? Because if it throws it out too much, you're going to have issues with vacancy and, severely negative geared if the rents don't stack up to that and you're overpaying. So it's I get that FOMO though. It's back in like 2021, because I just started my business as well, I didn't have borrowing. I was so desperate. I was like, oh, I gotta buy. And yeah, I get that. It's the FOMO is real, and I'm sure it's crazy. Everyone's been talking about Perth for a while.
Yeah.
So
What's your suburb?
I actually picked Eden's Landing. So it's a suburb. It's probably about 35 minutes out of the CBD, on the south side. Very interesting as it has an over 80% owner occupier ratio. So the medium house prices are quite high as well. I think it's about the 800, because there's big pockets in it that have really nice views. So it's positioned up on a perch. It's about 5 minutes out of Beenleigh, which I'm not sure if you've heard of that suburb before, but it's kind of the center of the M1, so right directly between the CBD and the Gold Coast. And very low socioeconomic area, Beenleigh notoriously in the past. It's kind of slowly getting better, but Eden's Landing, higher owner occupier rate, lots of owner occupier appeal. And I think it's got room in terms of growth because there are some pockets there you can still buy for, high 500s, mid 600s and pick up a really quality asset. And it will again rent about that 1%, it should rent for 600 to 650 or high 500s. And the block sizes are really appealing as well. So that's kind of my pick of the week in terms of suburb. It's got a bit of a vibe up there as well.
Yeah, amazing. Sounds good. I just want to also draw attention to empoweredinvestor.co, which is our online course that Jackie and I have created. So in that course, there is over 30 videos. I call them learning videos, and we talk about and go through the stages of actually buying and things to look for us property managers, and tips to have that sustainable long-term investment so that you have got that deeper understanding from a property management point of view, and know what it takes to be an investor and work with your property manager and hold on to your property long term, which will allow you to buy multiple properties as well. So it is the first of its kind created by property managers. So you won't find anything else in Australia like it. So if you haven't yet had a look, jump over to empoweredinvestor.co and have a look at there, and it definitely will help you just have that little bit of a deeper understanding of property management and being an investor, as well as pre-buying versus plus like the buying process and then maintaining it.
Yeah, exactly. And like we've discussed many times, I think we worked it out. We've done something like 3,000 pre-purchase inspections for our clients over the years. And what I find and that's why we created the course, is a lot of those people who are buying it and doing it themselves, they lean so heavily on us, but they still lack the confidence and the empowerment to actually pull the trigger and make that decision. So yeah, I think we've provided excellent value in the course, and it's it's something that we want to empower the community so that people are making better educated decisions on their investments.
Absolutely. Well, Jackie, lovely chatting to you this week. I will chat to you next week and let you know how many times I've been abused for no aircon in the house.
Hopefully it cools down. All right, have a good week. See you, Ash.
You too.